There's a difference between choosing to be alone and slowly disappearing from the world. One restores you, the other quietly drains you. Most people can't tell which one they're living, and that confusion, that blurred line between peace and withdrawal, is exactly what we're going to untangle today.
Sign 1. The source of the choice. Strategic solitude begins with the decision. You close the door, put the phone down, cancel the plans, not because the world hurt you, but because you know yourself well enough to know you need quiet. That's agency. That's self-awareness in action. Social isolation is different. It creeps in through avoidance. You cancel because going out feels too heavy, too exhausting, too risky. You tell yourself you're just tired, and maybe you are. But the difference between resting by choice and hiding by habit is enormous. One sign of strategic solitude is that you are the one steering. You chose this. Nobody pushed you here.
Sign 2. How you feel afterward. Here's one of the clearest tests you can give yourself. After time spent alone, how do you feel? Strategic solitude leaves you feeling recharged, clearer, like the noise has lifted and you can finally hear your own thoughts again. You come back to people with more warmth, more patience, more of yourself to give. Social isolation does the opposite. The more time you spend away from connection, the heavier everything becomes. The silence doesn't restore you, it amplifies the loneliness. You feel more tired after rest, more anxious after quiet. That gap between what solitude promises and what isolation delivers, that's sign number 2.
Sign 3. Your relationship with time alone. When you're alone, do you feel at home or do you feel trapped? Strategic solitude feels purposeful. You read, you think, you create, you breathe. There's something you're doing with the quiet. You're using it. Social isolation feels like waiting for something terrible to pass. You're not using the time, you're enduring it. Hours disappear into screens or ceilings where the same looping thoughts. The room doesn't feel peaceful. It feels like a holding cell. This relationship with your own solitude, whether it feels like a gift you gave yourself or a sentence you're serving, is the third sign worth paying close attention to.
Sign 4. Your thoughts about other people. Pay attention to what happens in your mind when you think about the people in your life. In strategic solitude, other people don't disappear from your inner world. You think of them warmly. You look forward to seeing them. The distance is temporary, and it makes the connection sweeter when you return. In social isolation, thoughts about people start to shift. You begin to assume they don't want you around. You convince yourself they're better off without you, or that reaching out would only be a burden. Those aren't facts. Those are symptoms. And catching that shift early, that quiet retreat from trust, is sign number 4.
Sign 5. Whether you have an exit. Strategic solitude has a shape. It has a beginning and an end. You take the weekend for yourself. You spend the morning in silence. You take the trip alone. And then you return. You always plan to return. Social isolation doesn't have an exit. It stretches. Days blur into weeks. You tell yourself you'll reach out soon. You'll go next time. You'll feel more ready later. But later keeps moving. The longer you wait, the harder it feels to re-enter. The world starts to feel like something that happens to other people. If you can't imagine your way back to connection, that's sign 5. And it matters. Sign 6. The role of shame. This one is quiet, but it's important. Strategic solitude carries no shame. You don't need to explain it. You don't feel guilty for taking space. You're not hiding anything. You're simply honoring what you need. Social isolation almost always comes with shame attached. You don't tell people you've been alone for 3 weeks straight. You give vague answers about being busy. You scroll through messages you never answered and feel something sink in your chest. That shame is a signal, not a moral failure, a signal. It's telling you that some part of you knows this isn't rest, it's retreat. And sign 6 is learning to hear the difference.
Sign 7. Your sense of identity. Who are you when no one is watching? In strategic solitude, the time alone deepens your relationship with yourself. You learn what you think, what you value, what brings you alive. You come back from the quiet, knowing yourself a little better. In social isolation, something stranger happens. You start to lose the thread. Without the mirror of other people, identity becomes foggy. You're not sure what you feel, what you want, or even what you like anymore. The self that needs others to exist, that's not weakness. That's humanity. We are built for connection. And when isolation starts to hollow out your sense of self, that's sign 7.
Sign 8. What happens when someone reaches out? Someone texts. A friend invites you somewhere. Family wants to get together. What happens in your body when that message arrives? In strategic solitude, there's a quiet gladness. Maybe not immediately, maybe you're still in your quiet season, but underneath, you feel the warmth of being wanted. You might say, not yet, but you mean it with love. In social isolation, that same message can feel like a threat. Too much, too hard. You feel a spike of anxiety and reach for an excuse. The closer the invitation, the faster you retreat. That response, the instinct to flee connection rather than simply postpone it, is sign number 8.
Understanding why this matters goes beyond labeling yourself. Psychology has long recognized that solitude, chosen, conscious solitude, is one of the most powerful tools for emotional regulation, creativity, and self-knowledge. Introverts know it intimately, but even extroverts need pockets of quiet to process and reset. Social isolation, on the other hand, is linked to measurable increases in anxiety, depression, cognitive decline, and even physical health deterioration. The research is consistent. Chronic loneliness affects the body the same way long-term stress does. The difference between these two states isn't just emotional, it's biological. And knowing which one you're actually in is not a luxury, it's essential information.
If some of these signs landed close to home, sit with that for a moment. Not with judgment, with curiosity. Many people drift into isolation without any single moment of decision. Life gets hard, a relationship ends, work becomes crushing, and somewhere in the withdrawing and the recovering, the weeks quietly pass. You didn't plan to disappear. You were just trying to survive, and survival takes many shapes. But there's a cost to staying invisible too long. The world doesn't wait, and neither does the version of you that belongs in it. Recognizing where you are, even if it's uncomfortable, is not the problem. It's the beginning of the answer. So, what do you actually do with this? Start small and start honest. First, name it. Say to yourself, without softening it, which side of this line you're currently on. Second, if it's isolation, don't try to fix it all at once. One text,
one short call, one coffee with one person you trust. Connection, like a muscle that's been still, needs gentle reactivation. Third, build structure around solitude so it has a shape and a return point. Schedule your quiet time so it serves you, not swallows you. And fourth, if the withdrawal feels bigger than willpower can reach, consider that asking for help is itself an act of connection.
Here's what's also true. None of this is black and white. There are seasons of life when pulling back is not only understandable, it's necessary. Grief, burnout, trauma, these are real forces that legitimately require a kind of turning inward. The goal isn't to be constantly available, constantly social, constantly surrounded. The goal is awareness, knowing the difference between the solitude that heals and the isolation that hardens, and knowing that the line can shift. You might move between them across months or years. What matters is that you keep checking in with yourself honestly, with the same gentleness you'd offer a person you actually love.
Before we move on, I want to offer you a few questions to sit with, not to answer out loud, just to feel into. When was the last time you chose solitude because you were full, not because you were afraid? When did you last reach out to someone, not because you had to, but simply because you wanted them near? And here's the most important one. Is the quiet in your life right now giving something back to you, or is it taking something away? There are no wrong answers, but there is a difference between the questions that make you feel lighter and the ones that make you pause a little too long.